So I'm reading the Farmer Refuted, the Farmer Refuted, carrying on. The Farmer Refuted. The farmer, you are wrong, says Alexander Hamilton. You don't know what you're talking about. The only thing that people know about the Farmer Refuted is that musical, the Hamilton. There's like a 2-minute song, but actually the Farmer Refuted is kind of a manifesto, kind of a treaty in of itself, a treatise, a manifesto treatise. The British patriots may in time be heard to court the gale of popular favor by boasting their exploits and laying some new impositions on their American vassals, and by that means lessening the burthens of their friends and fellow subjects. But what merits still more serious attention is this. The Farmer Refuted. What's the guy's name? We'll get to it later. But this guy wants to say the British is right. We're supposed to bow down to kings and queens. We're not supposed to have a Bill of Rights. We're not supposed to have the right to defend ourselves, the right to bear arms, the right to petition, the right to peacefully assemble. Are you kidding me? There seems to be already a jealousy of our dawning splendor. It is looked upon as portentous of approaching independence. This, we have reason to believe, is one of the principal incitements to the present rigorous and unconstitutional proceedings against us. And though it may have chiefly originated in the calumnies of designing men, yet it does not entirely depend upon adventitious or partial clauses, but is also founded in the circumstances of our country and situation, the boundless extent of territory we possess, the wholesome temperament of our climate, the luxuriance and fertility of our soil, the variety of our products, the rapidity of our population, the industry of our countrymen, and the commodiousness of our ports naturally lead to a suspicion of independence. Oh, we are wealthy and we're doing great. Oh, what, you're going to be independent and would always have an influence pernicious to us. Jealousy is a predominant passion of human nature, and it's a source of the greatest evils. Whenever it takes place between rulers and their subjects, it proves the bane of civil society. The experience of past ages may inform us that when the circumstances of a people render them distress, their rulers generally recur to severe, cruel, and oppressive measures. Instead of endeavoring to establish their authority in the affection of their subjects, they think they have no security but in their fear. They do not aim at gaining their fidelity and obedience by making them flourish and prosperous and happy, but by rendering them abject and dispirited. They think it necessary to intimidate and awe them, to make every accession to their power, and to impair the peoples as much as possible. One great engine to effect this in America would be a large standing army, maintained out of their own pockets, maintained out of our own pockets, to be at the devotion of our oppressors. This would be introduced under pretense of defending us, but in fact to make our bondage and misery complete. We might soon expect the martial law universally prevalent, to the abolition of trials by juries, the habeas corpus act, and every other bulwark of personal safety, in order to overawe the honest asserters of their country's cause. A numerous train of court dependents would be created and supported at our expense. The value of all of our possessions, by a complication of extortive methods, would be gradually depreciated till it became a mere shadow. This will be called too high wrought a picture, a phantom of my own deluded imagination. The highest eulogies will be lavished on the wisdom and justice of the British nation. But deplorable is the condition of that people who have nothing else than the wisdom and justice of another to depend upon. Political writers, say a celebrated author, have established it as a maxim that in contriving any system of government and fixing the several checks and controls of the Constitution, every man ought to be supposed a knave, and to have no other end in all his actions but private interest. By this interest we must govern him, and by means of him make him cooperate to public good, notwithstanding his insatiable avarice and ambition. Without this we shall in vain boast of the advantages of any constitution, and shall find in the end we have no security. What's going on? Okay, so no security. No security. Forgot where I was at. A mere shadow too wrought of a picture or phantom of my own deluded imagination. Deplorable is the condition of that people with nothing else than the wisdom and justice of another to depend on. Political writers say a celebrated author have established it as a maxim that in contriving any system of government and fixing the several checks and controls of the Constitution, every man ought to be supposed a knave, and that we have no security for our liberties and possessions except the goodwill of our rulers. Our rulers will be goodwill. That is to say, we got no security at all. It is therefore a just political maxim that every man must be supposed a knave, though at the same time it appears somewhat strange that a maxim should be true in politics, which is false in fact. But to satisfy us on this head, we may consider that men are generally more honest in a private than in a public capacity, and will go greater lengths to serve a party than when their own private interest is alone concerned. Honor is a great check upon mankind, but where a considerable body of men act together, this check is in a great measure removed, since a man is sure to be approved by his own party for what promotes the common interest, and he soon learns to despise the clamors of adversaries. To this we may add that every court or senate is determined by the great number of voices, so that if self-interest influences only the majority, as it will always do, the whole Senate follows the allurements of this separate interest and acts as if it contained not one member who had any regard to public interest and liberty. What additional force do these observations acquire when applied to the dominion of one community over another? From what has been said, it is plain that we are without those checks upon the representatives of Great Britain, which alone can make them answer the end of their appointment with respect to us, which is the preservation of the rights and the advancement of the happiness of the governed. The direct and inevitable consequence is that they have no right to govern us. Let us examine it in another light. The House of Commons, they receive all its authority from its electors in consequence of the right they have to share in the legislature. Its electors are freeholders, citizens, and others in Great Britain. It follows, therefore, that all its authority is confined to Great Britain. This is demonstrative. Sophistry, by an artful play of ambiguous terms, may perplex and obscure it, but reason can never confute it. The power which one society bestows upon any man or body of men can never extend beyond its own limits. The people of Great Britain may confer an authority over themselves, but they can never confer any over the people of America, because it is impossible for them to give that to another which they never possessed themselves. Now, I should be glad to see an attempt to prove that a freeholder, citizen, or any other man in Great Britain has any inherent right to the life, property, or liberty of a freeholder, citizen, or any other man in America. He can have no original and intrinsic right, because nature has distributed an equality of rights to every man. He can have no secondary or derivative right, because the only thing which could give him that is wanting, the consent of the natural proprietor. It's incumbent upon you to demonstrate the existence of such a right, or anything else you may produce will be of little avail. I do not expect you will be discouraged at the apparent difficulty. It is the peculiar province of an enterprising genius to surmount the greatest obstacles, and you have discovered an admirable dexterity in this way. You have put to flight some of my best arguments with no greater pains than a few positive assertions and as many paltry witticisms, and you become altogether irresistible by adding with a proper degree of confidence. You know the case to be as I state it. When I say that the authority of Parliament is confined to Great Britain, I speak of it in its primitive and original state. Parliament may acquire an incidental influence over others, but this must be by their own free consent. For without this, any power it might exercise would be mere